with my colleague Yanaris Ortega, we will be moderating this session. We both are policy officers at the DG Research and Innovation in the Materials for Tomorrow unit under the Prosperity Directorate. And this workshop will consist on an introduction by the director of the Prosperity Directorate at DG Research and Innovation, Peter Dröll, followed by two presentations from Michela Magas and Nadja Adamovic, and then a Q&A session where my colleague Yanaris and I will be selecting the questions that you write in the chat box and ask them to the speakers. In order to select the questions, you will see on the right of the screen that you have a chat box, and there is also a Q&A chat box as well. We ask you to use the Q&A to put the questions that you want that we ask to the speakers. This Q&A chat box allows to the audience also to vote the questions that you find more interesting, and then we will select those that have the higher number of votes. So I hope that you enjoy this workshop, and I give the floor now to Peter Dröll.
Thank you very much, Javier, and good morning to all wherever you are. This is a super important session for us. It's difficult to exaggerate the importance of data. We're talking here about not consumer data, but business-to-business data. It's part of the European data strategy, and we all know how important quality of data is and interoperability. Because, and this is what is behind this notion of industry commons, we want to combine the power of competitive markets with the power of an almost communist idea of sharing. And that requires interoperability and quality of data and understanding what the meaning of the data is and how different companies across different sectors, and this is the power of innovation we can trigger here, what the meaning is for different sectors, so that it can be used across sectors. So I'm absolutely delighted to welcome two key players in that field of data, business data, and that is Michela Magas. She is the chair of the Industry Commons Foundation. Actually, I think, Michela, it's you who created this term. And she is Innovation and Sustainability Manager of the OntoCommons Coordination Support Actions we are funding from the EU side. Apart from that, Michela is a serial entrepreneur and also has been the Women Innovator for the EU in 2017. I think that was the very first year we had this prize launched, and Michela largely deserved to have this extraordinary award. The second speaker this morning is Nadja Adamovic. She is a scientist at the Technical University of Vienna. Now someone wanted to clean my room, but I think we do that later. Apologies for that. So she's Nadja. So she's a leading scientist at the University of Vienna. She is the chair of the European Materials Modeling Council, something we are very proud of. And the success of this modeling council is largely due to you, Nadja. Thanks a lot for that. And she is the coordinator of this coordination support action I mentioned on data commons, so called OntoCommons, which will be starting now. So we have exactly the right people to guide us through, to show us what is at stake, and to help us to go to the next steps. With that, I hand over directly to you, Michela. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Peter, for this kind introduction, and welcome to the Industry Commons session. My presentation will focus on what is the Industry Commons in theory, what does it mean in practice, and how do theory and practice affect knowledge transfer. We start in a very familiar place with a mental model of the industry verticals. This is very much what we have inherited from 20th century practice. Now, each industry vertical is supported by a scaffolding of a supply chain. And in 2009, a Harvard article used the term industrial commons to refer to a supply chain ecosystem of an individual industry vertical. This was in response to increased outsourcing by the American industry, where the authors argued that should the industry develop stronger ties to its supply chain, it would result in an ecosystem that could yield a great deal more innovation. But it's worth noting it was related to one vertical, or the innovation that happens inside a vertical. When I introduced the term industry commons to the AOTI in 2015, I used industry commons to mean something that is a result of a horizontal dimension that was becoming dominant, and this is due to data-driven hyperconnectivity. Particularly what we were observing in all of our test beds and our sandboxes is that innovation was happening in the gaps in between the verticals by combining capabilities from two or more verticals. So if we actually look at all the disruptive innovation business models that have happened in the last sort of 10 years, they're usually the combination of two or more data streams from different industries. So in 2017, during the Global IoT Day, we discussed, are these silos now breaking down as a result of this? And is this resulting in a kind of a data soup, which is becoming unmanageable? Now, of course, it is about how we design these systems. And what the Industry Commons model provides is intelligence and structure to this data soup with a series of horizontal enablers. And the first, of course, is data interoperability. This is our top priority. But we can also take some really interesting examples from sectors which have practically entirely migrated to this horizontal dimension. Financial services are a case in point, particularly here in Sweden, where we haven't seen banknotes for at least 5 years, and financial services operate much like electricity. They are seamless and they require minimum engagement. They are connected via APIs, application programming interfaces, to all kinds of other domains. So, for instance, financial services are closely linked with the government UIDs, or rather Swedish personal numbers are used as financial identifiers as well. They're closely linked to the taxation system. And what's interesting is they are completely transparent at peer-to-peer transaction and therefore fully traceable, at the same time as being fully secure at peer point. Personal mobile phones are used as secure IoT devices for financial transactions. If we look at this as an example, there is nothing to stop us building an IP tracking system that would work in the same way. So in terms of tracking intellectual property, well, this is quite interesting because several years ago I was asked when I was advising to the Connect Advisory Forum, do I think that data is currency? And I said, well, currency has been data for a long time, so there's no reason why data isn't currency. If data is currency and data is also intellectual property, therefore intellectual property is currency, it could be built in the same way. If we connect those three dimensions, horizontal dimensions, with decentralized services, and providing we can solve the environmental impact of horizontal decentralized services, decentralized systems, then we could introduce micropayments at the point of exchange. Also, of course, in the long run, we could introduce nanotaxation. This, of course, means that all the intellectual property is also linked to the layer of legislation and operate through smart contracts, which are dynamic, which can have metadata at the front end and also have parameters which adapt to particular use cases. But of course, they work within legislation parameters, and the legislation parameters can be set according to our ambitions, for instance, in conjunction with the Green Deal, where environmental monitoring, for instance, can be part of this system, as well as some other concerns that we have as a society, for instance, responsible AI or corporate social responsibility or data ethics. They can all be inbuilt into this system because at the base layer, the foundational layer of this horizontal system is society itself. Now, this may look familiar because all of these are aspects that are also found inside each vertical, but there is a layer that is extremely interesting and important, which is a value-added layer to this horizontal system. And this layer is now able to combine assets from various domains into radical innovation. This could be hybrid applications, it could be modeling applications that look at various different use cases, or it could be used for procurement, for example. Now, the idea of building radical innovation as part of a interconnected system is really unprecedented. Radical innovation or disruptive innovation usually happens somewhere in the sidelines or in between the verticals, and it's usually very difficult to track and trace. In this case, let's say we combine two data sets from two different domains and it results in a third data set which opens new market possibilities. There is nothing to stop the system notifying the original proprietors of intellectual property and allowing them to make an informed decision whether investment is needed in this area. This is the unprecedented scenario that we now have with the industry commons. What does it mean for individual knowledge domains? So the verticals are still there, and the expertise we have within each vertical is incredibly important. Of course, each domain uses a domain-specific language which has evolved from its domain culture. The word product, and we're now talking about semantics, so the word product is associated with very different terms in each domain. So the word product means one thing in one domain and another thing in another. And this is for a very good reason, and it should stay that way. There is absolutely no point in standardizing this at application level. Knowledge graphs are therefore very different when drawn for particular use cases in different domains, and domain ontologies are used that have evolved from the culture of product or the culture of service within that domain. Where domain ontologies are in full use and being regularly used, we do not want to touch them. What we do want, however, is to be able to bridge between some of these knowledge areas and introduce a system of translation or a way to interoperate that allows us to understand each other. And for that reason, we are starting with the project OntoCommons, which is the very first step in establishing an industry commons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michela. I think the audience managed to follow your presentation and the slides.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
That's great. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Javier, for inviting me to be in this workshop today. It's a great pleasure for me. And for the first time, I will have the opportunity to present the OntoCommons CSA project. I say for the first time because the project didn't start yet. It will start in November this year, and it's a 3-year project. So a lot of things which I present will happen in the close future. So we'll start to share my slides now. So can you see them? Yes, great, it works. The full title of the project is Ontology-Driven Data Documentation for Industry Common. As you see from the title of the project, Industry Commons is in the heart of the project. So a lot of things that will be covered by Michela's presentation about objectives of Industry Commons will be covered with activities and will be implemented within this project. It's a coordination and support action, and like I said, it should start in November this year. With this slide, I wanted to show you that many people in the consortium of OntoCommons contribute to this action. I would like to thank to many partners who supported a lot initial activities in the proposal preparation stage. I will not have time to name all of them because there were plenty who contributed with expertise in the first stage. And this brought us to this step that we have a project which was awarded in the last month and soon we should start our activities. Just to say that coordination activities will be shared between myself, I am the project coordinator, and the technical project manager is from National Engineering School of Tarbes. It's Hedy Carey, who will strongly support me in future activities and in coordination. We have 19 organizations within the consortium, a number of third parties, and really large number of external institutions and companies who expressed interest to be involved in this action. And you can imagine that it's really a challenge to coordinate so many players because we are not confined only on the project consortium. But I'm confident, I think, with this expertise and good team spirit, we will manage very well this challenging project. What the project is about, as being a coordination and support action, one of the major objectives of the project will be to bring together players, people, and to coordinate all or most important activities of all relevant European stakeholders. As being a European project, of course, European stakeholders are very important, but we will not confine ourselves on Europe, of course. So we deal with standards, we will deal with international major players as well. The core of the project is to develop and deliver at the end of the project the open ontology commons ecosystem as a foundation for standardized data documentation. This will be demonstrated with a large number of demonstrator cases. We have initially defined 11 within the project, but we are open for additional demonstrators. We will invite external players to join and to support with about 10 additional demonstrator cases. The purpose of these demonstrator cases is to test the system and validate what we develop in the ecosystem. The final or overarching goal is finally to overcome bottlenecks regarding the interoperability issues and to facilitate the data sharing and valorization. With this slide, it's a very schematic picture, very simple picture to present you the structure of the Ontology Commons ecosystem. It's composed of a number of selected ontologies which are interconnected. It's a network of ontologies, but not any ontologies. We have to select them. And which ontologies will be a part of the system will be defined with specifications and requirements. How we will do it within the CSA project, in the spirit of the project, we will have on the beginning one large a wide stakeholder consultation workshop where we will define this specification or a minimum set on requirements for ontologies, which ontologies need to fulfill in order to be a part of this system. This will be mainly devoted to the top level ontologies, and this will be, for instance, just as example, for instance, it could be selection of ontology languages and or some other requirements, but this will be defined with stakeholders. Then we have a set of tools. We will use state-of-the-art tools. We will not develop within the project new tools. The reason is that there is already plenty being done, and our task will be to have a survey and to see what's available and what should be included in order then to support the ecosystem. These specifications and requirements will put, of course, some specifications on the tools themselves, because the tools have to be compatible and the system has to be harmonized together with ontologies. The tools will be used for building of ontologies, for their harmonization, for their visualization, optimization, and of course for data documentation process. Just some words about these ontologies. Depending on the level of generality, we will have different levels from the top level towards the application level. It's a very, very important feature of this project, and I think that this is something what makes it really very valuable, but on the other side also very challenging. This is the fact that in the project we didn't want to select one top level ontology and to say, okay, we will deal just with this one, and then those lower level ontologies which are under one top level. But we have a pluralistic approach. We want to integrate as many players and stakeholders and communities as possible. We want to maximize it. And this is the reason we will select on the beginning of the project several top level ontologies, and we will not confine ourselves just on one. More about it I will say in the following slide. There will be a set of different interoperability levels between ontologies. I cannot go in this short time in detail, but just to say that, for instance, if we have within one domain two domain ontologies which are coming or having the same upper level ontology, then we will provide a semantic interoperability level. In the case that we have within the domain two ontologies which are coming or having different upper level ontologies, just as example, it could be one BFO and another one Dolce. In this case, at least we will achieve terminological interoperability, but still this will enable us to exchange the data and to facilitate data sharing. I will come then to the next slide. Here I present you that we have several top level ontologies, and again, which will be a part of the ecosystem will be discussed among the stakeholders on the beginning of the project. This is just one example what you see here, but this can be enlarged. The pool can be enlarged, and this is something what the community will decide. So we have several top-level ontologies, and in order to make them interoperable, we need to do harmonization or alignment of technologies, and this will be done with the development of the meta-ontology, which will support top-level ontologies to be interoperable in a semantic way. There will be some development, and that was in the call text expected. CSA type of the project has limited research activities, but this is one of activity where we will have development, and this is to provide one meta-ontology which will enable several top-level ontologies to be interoperable. This is project structure, more or less. It represents also the structure regarding the work packages within the project. We will have strong activities on the community development. In a CSA type of the project, it is something what is very, very much important. It's important in any project, but especially in this type of the project, quite a lot of resources are devoted to cooperation and engagement of stakeholders. Then there are standardization bodies within Europe on the international level. Just to name, for instance, some initiatives like Research Data Alliance or European Open Science Cloud. Then the company, which is Michela representing, she's also involved in this project, European Materials Modeling Council. So there are a lot of already existing initiatives in Europe, and there is one work package devoted to establishing close cooperation with all these initiatives. Then what is even more difficult task is to engage all these people in CSA activities. We want to establish a two-way communication. And what do we expect or understand under engagement? This is, for instance, to collect what is existing regarding ontologies on the top level, on the domain level, in different industrial sectors. Then what are the tools which are currently available? We want to engage the stakeholders in workshops, in discussions, in definition of the gaps in the field of data documentation and standardization. We want jointly to discuss these bottlenecks and to propose finally recommendations how to overcome these bottlenecks next, and this will be summarized in one document which will represent OntoCommons roadmap as a strategic document for data documentation based on use of ontologies and taxonomies. Then, in addition, these stakeholders can support us a lot in raising awareness within industrial players, in dissemination activities, and this is something what is foreseen as very, very strong activity in the CSA project. Then we have another part, a more technical part, and this is to develop the ecosystem. We have one work package which is devoted to definition of the specification and requirements for the ecosystem, and then selection of a state-of-the-art tools. But tools are not any tools. These tools have to be compatible with a selected set of ontologies. We have top-level ontology and mid-level ontologies within one work package. First of all, we will start with agreement among the stakeholders which top-level ontologies will be part of the system. And when I say development, it means development of the meta-ontology, which will harmonize and align top-level ontologies. Then we come to the domain ontologies. We will have plenty of demonstrator cases covering a large number of NMBP domains. We will use what is existing within different domains. So we will harmonize existing ontologies, but like foreseen in the call topic, we will have also some new development regarding the needed new ontologies for the domains where ontologies do not exist. Still, we do not develop any ontologies. This will be defined by the demonstration cases, and of course then influenced in this way. We will see, okay, what we need and what does not exist, and this will then define finally which new ontologies we need to develop on the domain level. The core activity will be on the harmonization, on the establishing of interoperability between data documentation, but very, very important is that we have also interoperability between ontologies here, and not only on data, we have also interoperability on the level of ontologies. This pluralistic approach is very important, meaning that we can have within the same domain different ontologies. We do not confine ourselves on just on one ontology, and this is something what is really in a spirit of a CSA project, to have this inclusivity and to reuse existing resources as much as possible, what is existing and what the people use or are used to use. We want to integrate it as much as possible with this approach. It makes everything more complex for the realization. It's a challenging, this is for sure. But I think that the impact of such approach will be very, very high, and outcomes of this CSA project can support a lot in all activities which will be, I think, addressed within the presentation of Michela. We have demonstration. Yes.
Now it's time to close, please.
Yes, it's very,
what you're
very
saying, but we need to also allow time for discussion.
Exactly. To summarize, we target different domains, large number of different domains within the NMBP work program. We will harmonize data documentation and harmonize ontologies as well due to top reference ontology. We have intra and cross-domain interoperability. We have a pluralistic approach within the domain. Our demonstration cases will cover from material development to manufacturing to modeling to characterization, nanosafety, so plenty of different domains covered by NMBP. And the stakeholders which are involved in the project are really very diverse. These are experts in different fields like chemicists or material scientists, ontologists, implementers, or the people who are software developer. Then industrial stakeholders like manufacturers, product developers, and finally we have also end users or all people who will finally use this ecosystem for documentation of their cases. And here we include also business developers as well. So with this I would conclude, and I would thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nadja. Indeed, you outlined this pluralistic approach, and you answered already partly one of the questions we have you answered it in the chat, in the question and answer function, whether you're interested in interaction with other projects. You mentioned them explicitly. Can you say perhaps a bit more about how other projects can engage with you, and what the functional knowledge management system will be?
Yes, of course. Within the collaboration, we intend to work to map all relevant European projects which are dealing with this topic, and we will interact with them. Typically, we organize large stakeholder consultations. We put the people from these projects involved in these activities to discuss it with us, and we come up with mutual agreements then which are then implemented within other projects as well. You can see the CSA as umbrella project having the task to coordinate all what is existing in Europe, all activities, all projects, and practically to put the people to talk together and to come up with one agreement. I don't want to say a standard, but it's in a way some kind of recommendation or something that we then finally recommend to plenty of other marketplaces or digitalization hubs to implement and then to use within their own initiatives. I know that some of them already follow this approach. At least some of the people are involved from the CSA in some other activities, and I'm aware that many projects take account and work also on data documentation then based on different ontologies. So that was the question. So we of course intend to implement, and this is the purpose. This is one of the core activity of the CSA. And finally, what is important, we will follow what's happening on European international standardization level, and where appropriate, we could potentially contribute to some standards regarding the data documentation based on ontologies.
Thank you,
this
Nadja.
system, I just to reply another question which you ask, this is coordination and support action. Mainly, we will have one ecosystem which is going to be outcome of this project. In parallel, there will be another marketplace which will, I think, also start quite soon, and this is research and innovation action, where the project will really implement what we agree within the CSA project. So this will be a platform integrating then the outcomes of the CSA.
Let's go to the questions. Okay, there is one, Nadja, from Malgozarta Seluk, that she asked, how can we participate and or apply to join one of the planned 10 demo cases? I suppose it's for companies maybe, or also to other projects.
It's possible to contribute. CSA projects have an open spirit. So it means we have a consortium, but in reality, our goal is to involve theoretically all stakeholders, all companies from Europe on the international level as well. And to collect the feedback and to discuss together within the workshops which are going to be organized, hopefully in person, in 6-7 months. It will be possible. But we will have also online surveys where we will collect the input and practically based on the feedback we will define and come up to the agreement and some recommendations in each of these different topics which are broadly defined. The companies are welcome. We are very, very happy to support the industry. We have already in some other projects a strong interest by some industrial players who already work with ontologies and data documentation, and they see that this is something what is going to happen in Europe, and they want to be follow, and they want from the beginning on to be a part of it. They want want to miss the train. So I know really very high people from big companies who told me that it's really very important for some large companies to follow these activities and to work on data sharing. They see the benefits regarding the innovation potential. Also, in demonstrator cases, we are planning to have 10 additional demonstrator cases. Everybody is invited to contact us, and we will consider, select. Of course, we will have some pre-selection. The reason is that we do not want to overlap or do 5 similar cases. We will see that we cover different domains, and this will be, for instance, one of the criteria for selection of demonstrator cases. But of course, the whole community is invited to contact us and to express the interest and to support the different activities.
Okay, thank you very much. There is one question with 6 votes asking from Dimitris Kiritsis. Welcome, Dimitris. Says, in our world, working under globalization 4.0, ontologies in any domain, in my opinion, must be adopted at a global international level. Can you say a few words on how OntoCommons could contribute to that?
Shall I reply?
Yes.
Yes, of course, I completely agree with Dimitris. He's also part of the consortium, and I think will have a very valuable contribution within the project. How we will do it? We have already, for instance, identified standardization bodies from USA, from other regions as well, and they will be integrated, invited to our workshops to discuss together all relevant issues. There is also one call, I think it's ICT 45. It's also one CSA type of the project that should be granted at the end of this year. And we want to collaborate very closely with this project because the topic of the project is on the international standardization and contribution of European standards on the international level. Then we have in the advisory board, external advisory board, also international players like Barry Smith, for instance, who will surely then contribute and make connections with other geographies as well and with other standardization bodies. But I completely agree, of course, it should be on the international level, and we will involve international players as well. So it's foreseen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and also just to mention, with Industrial Ontologies Foundry, we will closely collaborate, and I think all of that will contribute to this.
There was also a question asking about the link with the EMMC, the European Material Modeling Council.
Within the European Materials Modeling Council, we work for, I think, 6 or 7 years now on interoperability issues. And within the EMMC, we started activities on one of the top level ontologies, mainly a group of people who are as well involved in OntoCommons consortium, Emanuele Ghedini from Sintef, Gerhard Goldbeck, Fraunhofer, Adam Hashimon. So there are several people who are strongly involved within EMMC, and they developed top-level ontology EMO, European Materials Modeling Ontology, and this will be most probably one of top-level ontologies that will be also within the OntoCommons considered, and there are plenty of projects, running European projects, where we worked also with this top-level ontology on different industrial demonstrator cases. Some of these industrial demonstrator cases will be integrated within the CSA as well. So I would say there is a history of 6-7 years now in EMMC, where we discussed, worked, elaborated roadmaps on the materials modeling topic and digitalization.
Thank you. We only have 5 minutes left, but I found a very interesting question that I want to ask to you both, and then we will close. It comes from Malgozarta Seluk, and she asks, in the contemporary global financial system, money seems to have lost its real value. Don't you think data will be losing its value as a result of globalization in one ecosystem?
Could you please repeat, Javier, just to be clear?
Well, she's asking if, do you think that data will be losing its value as a result of globalization in one ecosystem?
Data within an ecosystem would be losing value. I cannot possibly imagine how that could happen. I mean, we are using all of the frontier technologies that we are currently testing in our sandboxes and in our laboratories with the experiments are generating a tremendous amount of data, and the value that is there is a big discussion over what is the value of this data, and it works in various different at various different levels. Sometimes there's value in raw data, sometimes there's value in processed data, sometimes in the metrics that are derived from data, and depends on which use case it is directed at. But there's absolutely no question that the use cases that are coming up are the ones that require data to have particular value, or rather require quality data in order for the use cases and the new business models that are being derived from that. So the data that's driving new business models definitely has value, and it will continue to have value. The more we have new business models that are derived from data sets, those data sets will definitely have value because they will support an entire business.
Okay, so we only have 3 minutes left. Peter, would you like to add something, or we close? I'm really apologize for all the technical issues that we had. I hope that at least you managed to follow the presentation, the very good presentations from Nadja and from Michela. For me, they were clear. We have now in front of us a very challenging project that starts now, that we are very interested to it. You, as Nadja said, are all invited to follow up on it. And Peter?
Thank you, Javier. Let me just say that I wish this project and all of us a lot of interoperability and connectivity to make the best use not only of data, but also of our ideas. Thank you ever so much also to Nadja and Michela, and to you following us and following this project. And please, I think this message was very clear. Engage with Nadja and the OntoCommons projects, with Michela, and let's make this really big, reaching out to being as cross-sectoral as possible.
Okay.
And I think now we will be kicked out by the IT here. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, everybody. And let's hope that we can have more discussions without sort of interoperability or whatever other technical glitches. This is what we're working on. And we very much welcome the whole community to jump on board. The momentum is really quite great. So thank you, Peter, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, and goodbye to all of you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.